So yeah, I know you were asking about my week. I don't know why exactly. If I thought about it, it just feels like one of those weeks where it's like dealing with dumpster fires. You're just trying to put them out constantly. It just sucks. Just like, well, there's another shit show. Thanks, boss. Not specifically my boss, but just whoever is just directing these like fucking turds into my traffic lanes. So,
Yeah.
just how
Well,
about you, man? How's your week?
it was good. I mean, you did dodge, like, I'm assuming you weren't part of the 30,000. So
If so, I've been working for free this whole week. So, yeah,
you're
I
good
know.
there.
It. I don't know. What are you gonna do, man? I don't, if you don't cry, you got. If you're gonna laugh, you cry. So yeah, I actually don't know anybody that got personally impacted directly. So I guess that's good. But just yeah, this sucks. But I don't think it's anything different from any of the other big tech companies, more or less, right? Years of efficiency. Did they overhire? I don't know. I don't buy the AI narrative, but I don't know. Nobody's asking me. So except you're asking.
Yeah. I mean, it is interesting though. I think the efficiency and overhire was like the 2023 layoffs in my mind. Cause whether, we were AWS, I was at AWS that time, but everywhere was just like higher, higher, higher during COVID. And then end of 2022, 2023 were like the massive layoffs, which I think were the blow, right? So this one is where it is interesting. But I have seen like the tale of two cities because the UPS, they came out and they fired I think 10,000 more than like Amazon, and people were making some like wild assumptions. Some of the best ones were like UPS has integrated the AI, so they are like AI efficient. Amazon is doing it to open up cash flow to buy more GPUs. So theirs isn't efficiency, theirs is they need more cash. But then they came out and beat numbers yesterday, right? So it's
Yeah.
not like it is a very interesting, you know, world, that we live in right now. Cause it's like you, you know, yeah. I mean, not to just hang on this, but when you beat numbers like you did yesterday, and then the forecast is to beat again, but you fired. So is it just like excess? Like you said, maybe it is like, you know,
Yeah, you could have a whole podcast. I mean, so the top three employers in the United States is one, the US government, two, Walmart, three, Amazon. And so it's just, any organization's could be run leaner, right? And so it's hard to say exactly, they're so big. How do you know what you're doing and precisely right? The whole cutting with a scalpel analogy that, may or may not fit here. So, just try to do your job and show up and perform and, look forward to fun stuff on Fridays talking about this. Let's see. So, you sent me some stuff this week so we could jump into that. Was it the Anthropic announcement? Going to disrupt FSI was a big one. Anthropic for financial services, Excel plugin. And then there was another one. Google released something with like on branding. I can pull
yeah,
them up here. Google Labs,
people
introducing
that
Pomeli. So which one do you want to start with? We'd love to get your thoughts.
I played with the Google Labs one. I haven't played with the Anthropic one. So I mean, you can touch on the Google Labs one. And I don't know if you had a chance to jump in there and play around.
I popped in fringelines.io and I think everybody was hammering the site. It just couldn't finish it or for whatever reason. So I didn't get to actually play with it. But yeah, what's the concept again? It's kind of like creating on brand stuff based on your existing website branding, or tell
Yeah,
us what it
pretty
is.
much. Yeah, I mean, I think you pretty much hit it, and sort of, I guess, like, and I don't want to like, slaughter this, but like, taking,
By the way,
taking,
maybe we can get some good cheap ribeyes out of this.
yeah, taking like the Canva, like workout a play because like I'm trying to pull it up real quick to see. I don't even have the link anymore. Where is it?
I can share it while you're talking.
Because I did it. did do our branding. Yeah. So, like it pulled all like the colors, the tone, your voice. When I say tone, your voice. And then the first thing it did was like 3 ad layouts, and you could pick the format, like, you know, post, like a TikTok type video. And then it did like like a small little CTA, use some of your verbiage. So yeah, like right there, what you're seeing on that video. And so I guess for people like me who are like designers or in marketing, I can easily go in there and like, oh, hey, I want to pull together like a quick, good looking on brand ad for S3, and like make it in the tone of, the AWS, tone of like how we speak to customers. And so then it would quickly pull together the images and, a quick CTA for S3. And so,
Interesting.
I have that verse like me, and this is how I'm using it as like you know, in the trenches on the ground, boots on the ground. Okay, I can go and take that and like spin up a quick LinkedIn post that, you know, I copy and paste some of the narrative or the talk track on S3, and I have this on brand image, and I didn't have to go and bother marketing or design and wait 2 weeks to get that approved or turned around. They might not like it that it didn't get it approved, but hey, it was on
He's
brand.
gone rogue. Will gone rogue.
But
I
but
think
yeah,
that's
so
pretty on brand for you, man.
yeah, so but
Yeah.
so it gives you, I guess, other people tools. And maybe I don't know how a marketer, they might look at it different, like maybe it's not useful to them at all, or maybe it is, because when somebody from sales or somewhere says, hey, can you do me an ad talking about DynamoDB, and be like, yeah, real quick, hold on, okay, here you go,
Yep.
versus needing to do a whole design brief or whatever.
That makes perfect sense to me. So we've talked a lot before. I use Gamma a lot, and one of the hard things is it generates so much, and so I've been going back and forth and trying to actually like limit. Okay, just do one slide, or I'm going to have 10 topics, and I want a data point, a quote, and an insight for each slide, right? Like to really tighten it up. But then still, I have the branding, kind of like pick from sandstone or, purple rainbows, so it's like, that's not really what I was going for. Which one did I use last time? It's a little monotone. So I had seen kind of Canva, and I think even PowerPoint or Adobe kind of doing something similar, where it's like, okay, there's also AI generated, an image, right? Line art or something that looks like a photography or a real person can be used as stock, like, but that's like a stock photo equivalent. But all the other things, it just spit out randomness. So that's pretty cool that you can go on brand. And I think it just lowers the bar for these creators like us. It's going to democratize all this, and so we can move faster. And it kind of just goes back to people with high agency are just going to be able to do so much more with these tools, which is super cool. I do wonder about like, you know, once everybody gets comfortable with it, like what is going to be the hard, complex things that humans go work on next. But the space is moving so fast, so it's super cool. What you got?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And so as you're talking like the having the high agency, so like just an example. So this is the actual one. So it's got my brand DNA, right? And so I got my prompts, and I say draft a post targeting trad by. And so it's got like my brand, assuming how we use our images, like what our images look like. Let's see how quick this comes up. But yeah, speaking to your like high agency. So yeah, like you give your sellers, your BDs, your, customer support, you know, scale your institutional grade DeFi apps. Okay. So I clicked on that one. Okay. Got about 2 minutes. I don't know if we want to wait that long. But
Oh,
yeah. So it's like,
yeah. So this it kind of seems like it could also be similar to the Facebook ads. You're a small medium business. You want to upload something, and I love it. That's so like AI right there on the left. You got
yeah,
like the mismatched image. Like it looks amazing, but like then you put it together and it's kind of crappy. So, but it's still pretty impressive.
yeah. So like this one really isn't that bad. So I click on this, built for the future of finance. I think there is, we have to go back real quick. right here. So you can click here and it's like, oh, I want it to be a feed. So to your point, like LinkedIn, Square, like, so like then it's going to generate this for me to be like a LinkedIn size ad. But I'll just go to this one since it's already done. So like, okay, I pulled this image. I don't even know if this is one of ours, but did something cool. I could change the header that it, if you're after, then I can change the description, and then I can have it generate like a CTA for me. So yeah, I don't know, interesting, fun. I mean, for again, like nerds like us who maybe have high agency and are into doing this kind of stuff, we're going to be like more, I don't know, whether it's called like proactive or, you know, high agency engagement. I could put this out there today and, just start putting on Twitter and LinkedIn, and, maybe it would land with some, buddy at Goldman Sachs or BlackRock that might want to learn more about the future of finance.
Yeah, no, it's super cool. And then we got, so I've been on the Anthropic announcement train. So it's, we've talked about them before and they're focused on the enterprise. So they released, I think it was August, AI for cyber defenders. And so with they've actually invested cycles kind of like for the financial services in taking data, security log, telemetry data, and then kind of I don't know what reinforcement, essentially tuning the model to kind of be able to handle these different data sets, right? Understand the nomenclature and all those types of things. And so they're seeing some kind of latent cybersecurity capabilities around detecting undiscovered vulnerabilities 33% of the time if you let them give them 30, chances, and which ends up costing like $45. Well, if you think about $45 to find a vulnerability that now you can patch versus the cost of a breach, it's a no-brainer. So it's cool to see them also go after financial services. And so it looks like there's some pre-built Excels and cash flow models. Do you think you would use this in your current role, just kind of given GTM, BD in your current conversations, or any forecasting?
I haven't seen which ones they have like pre-built or are ready like to play with, but I would probably say I would experiment with them. Like one, we don't have a enterprise account, so I probably wouldn't put any of our data, just like full disclosure, Anthropic can like load our data into the public version. Because I think if you have like the public one, they have all rights to like use it. But yeah, I mean, something similar, I guess, like analogous to that is like with Google Sheets, they have the AI built into that now. We have like the enterprise account. And so whenever I'm looking at large swaths of data, like their AI pops up and it's like, oh, would you like to know, average, like simple stuff like average API usage, because it's reading the headers, right? And I'm like, sure, why not? Just for fun, because I want to see how good you are. But really all it's doing is like, summing up and averaging the total, like something that historically you would do and you just click you know, the button, but now it's like you just click AI and it says do it. So, but to your point, like, yeah, I think depending on what's already pre-built or, I think for like investment bankers or, there's that one, story I think I shared a while ago about like the advent of Excel and how that impacted like Wall Street and investment banking, how it was like a total game changer. And so in this, like if you are like in investment banking and you have the way you've already structured and modeled deals, yeah, now it's almost like you just need to copy and paste whatever numbers into the Anthropic and say, hey, run the XYZ model.
The model, yeah. So
Great.
I've heard similar stories. So I just threw up a chart for the youth unemployment. It's a little deceptive because the bar here starts at 7 and goes up to 10.5. So it looks like it's just up and to the right. It's really kind of hovering within like, I don't know, a point of 8%. But it's been interesting. Like more and more people are talking about this. And, because AI is, well, this is the hypothesis, because AI is not kind of great at complex ongoing tasks, but can do really, you know, straightforward knowledge work very quickly and cheaply, that's impacting the youth unemployment. I don't know if it's like that, if it's uncertainty around just businesses, if it's the pressure for earnings growth, right? Or just, being able to pursue AI. But it is interesting that it is trending up. And then you hear these anecdotes about, when I was came out of college or MBA, it was just the grind of the internship, and it wasn't so much about like doing it. I don't know what's the like they needed it to be right, but something didn't have a comma. This number was off, right? It was like the working to perfection and having this pride, and being up at 2 a.m. working on a PowerPoint deck or a model, which to me sounds insane. Oh, it sounds like my nightmare. But all of that does go away to these Anthropic Claude for financial services. It does beg the question of kind of what is the youth going to be doing? But I don't know. I struggle. Like once you automate something, you're going to want to find a growth vector. So then you're going to have people think about stuff. So I don't know, something to watch, obviously, with us having kids is the youth unemployment.
Yeah. Yeah. I also wonder too, just like and again, I don't want to sound biased or maybe even ignorant, but you land in these like echo chamber type, like Twitter spheres where, you like one thing about like some like Zoomer complaining about how their boss, got mad at them because they were late 5 days in a row and that they work is so hard, right? And then everybody's like, oh, Zoomers just don't have the work ethic. So then a lot of them don't try to go get jobs, right? So
Hmm.
is it like different, again, not trying to sound,
Cultures.
yeah, not trying to sound like old, but yeah, is it like maybe
Too late.
there's this, yeah, the participation trophy, like does
Yeah.
everybody just participation trophy and work is just too hard. And so, so you're
Yeah.
just filing unemployment because you don't want to go work at McDonald's.
I Yeah, that is real. I sometimes I wonder, is there just like people that suck in every generation? Yes. No, you just hear those stories. So I did kind of like, with everybody reporting earnings this week, Microsoft, Google, Amazon just crushed it. I think Nvidia is at the end of November, but all of them are seeing this like acceleration from AI and cloud, which I thought was pretty crazy. I think AWS did 33 billion. Google did a whole 100 billion in a quarter, which is crazy. Like these companies, you think the market cap is expensive. It's, I don't know, 3 trillion or pushing 3 trillion, but it's like, bro, they're about to be half a trillion in revenue in a couple of years. It's just insane to me. Like 2 years from now, they're going to be 500 million run rate, and I don't remember the others. So kind of I was begging the question of like, and I read this Economist article of, do you partner on AI or vertically integrate? And they pulled out Microsoft and Google because Google's got basically the hardware stack up to the software stack. And what it means by that, so that, they do use NVIDIA GPUs. Sundar, the CEO, has been on record for that. But they also have their tensor processing units, so they do a lot of inference there. Then they've also got their DeepMind lab, which created Gemini. So then, they've got their own very competitive large language model. Then on top of that, they have all their applications and YouTube and different lines of business and Vertex AI and GCP. So applying these models. They also partner, they've invested with Anthropic, right? And I think they signed an OpenAI deal, but that's more customer of. So OpenAI is going to run some compute on them. So like that versus a Microsoft, and not to take anything away from Microsoft, because I think they made the investment deal of the, decade, not the century, with the whole not-for-profit conversion, but Microsoft just released their first kind of native LLM, right? Like I think it's MAI or MAI 1. And so they're still heavily reliant on NVIDIA. They don't really have their own hardware stack. They do have a lot of line of business applications they're embedding Copilot into, or sorry, probably ChatGPT into. But it's kind of interesting, versus an Amazon, which is a little bit more like a Google in a way. They're invested in Anthropic. Amazon has web services, has Trainium chips. They've got Graviton chips, Inferentia chips. So they've heavily invested in their own silicon. They've got their Amazon Nova family models. And then, they've got their cloud, which can host both, Claude models and open models as well as Nova models. So yeah, it's interesting to kind of, see, even though Microsoft's kind of first mover advantage in it, I wonder if that's going to erode it all because it's so heavily dependent on OpenAI.
Yeah.
What what
It's,
do you think? Who's going to win so we can invest stocks?
I know that's where I was gonna put that back to you of like, I mean, you called out like the AWS for a long time has been investing in their own silicon and own hardware. So it's like, is that like the sleeper, right? Like, is it the sleeper where it just comes out and people are like, oh, we totally forgot and didn't realize this.
Yeah, Josh Brown is pretty bullish on them. And then even Scott Galloway was talking about Amazon just, I think, with all the bets. I don't know if you've noticed. In Amazon, they've been promoting groceries a lot more. And I wouldn't order groceries from Amazon because they're expensive. And it's like, I'm a shareholder, but $6 for a head of lettuce from Whole Foods is fucking expensive, guys. So I'm not going to do that. But now I'm seeing like onions for less than $1. I'm seeing fresh fruit, you know, like strawberries were less than $3 a pound. And I'm like, dude, that's a great deal. And it's delivered. And I don't feel like I need a tip. Whereas like Walmart, you got free delivery with my, Walmart Plus subscription because it comes with like Amex, offsets it. But then you're like, you got to tip your driver. And I don't know if you read any of those articles. So post pandemic, Walmart basically converted, you know, buy online and pick up became so popular. A lot of the Walmarts have mini distribution centers in the Walmart. So you see all the people picking, but a lot of that's automated too. So they actually have their own produce in a different part of the store. And so yeah, it's interesting. So now I'm like, what are we gonna watch with Amazon? Are they, they're trying to do that same day, next day groceries, and then Project Jupiter. If I'm saying that right, probably not. But the whole launching of satellites and internet, and I forget which airline was like, I think it was JetBlue. It's gonna be the first major customer. So, which I'm looking forward to because my European flight internet was trash. So
Yeah. On the groceries though, and maybe this is because I wasn't like HQ, but like when I was in Seattle during my time there, yeah, and it was during COVID as well. So it was like we used Amazon a lot for groceries, and you had the Whole Foods, but then you had like Amazon Fresh
yep.
too. And so I always thought it was very reasonable. I don't know. So maybe did they just roll that out to Dallas, or is it?
Just started noticing it. So it's been Whole Foods for a while, and it was maybe a couple months ago. Have you ever had the Clausen dill pickles that have to be stored cold? The spears. Those
Yeah,
are like my
yeah.
favorite. So then they have hamburger chips. They're more expensive, but they have spicy ones, and I can't find
Yes.
them anywhere. I can't find them and HEB hasn't opened up here in Dallas, like close to us, and so and they have them on fresh. I was like, oh, that's interesting, but it's like like I don't want to. I don't have $25 worth of stuff, and it's probably going to be it's probably overpriced. So even though the pickles are really cheap, but then like I said, fast forward like the last week or two, it's like, man, $2.70 for a pound of strawberries, that's a good deal. It's like $3.98 for a pound of 80/20 ground beef. Like that's cheaper than Kroger, that's cheaper than Costco. Like you have to check this out. So I'm gonna keep watching that. But yeah, it's these companies are just so big now in terms of employees and size and scale and businesses. It is just insane, like the amount of control these mini countries seem to have on our lives.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it is. It's interesting. Hopefully hopefully these many countries are democratic and believe in democracy and can help sustain it.
No, it's fucking shareholder profit, baby. Day one, day 20, day 365. All right, so I wanted to pivot to, there's a great article from Growth Unhinged. There's some cool um, visuals here in around 2025 GTM, like what's working, what's going to happen in 2026. This is kind of our world, sales, marketing, biz dev. And so, and why I think this is so important because the fundamental like distribution is becoming the mode for everything, for plumbing, from a SaaS, like do you have, how are you going to get customers, which has always been a challenge, but SEO is shifting, right? And so now you have generative engine. So let me just pull up some of these slides, but do you have any comments on kind of what are y'all's maybe top 3 GTM or channels for acquiring customers while I start sharing this? What's working? And then also, I guess, side question is, do you have any experiments? If you have experiments, because those are the two things that he's talked about.
Yeah, I mean, we've touched on it a bit in the past here, and then like you just touched on it, like the AEO experimenting with that. And then just this week, though, I've seen some comments from, marketers or other GTM heads that are saying, oh, like AEO is now broken because when the models improve, it changes everything. So now AEO isn't going to be as impactful. So it's always hard to say like who's right, who's wrong, like what's working. So it's like, experimentation. I think going back to like, the way, success is being able to try lots of experiments without the cost of failure. So as long as it's not a ton of cost, like we or I typically try to deploy it.
Yeah. Then so Kyle was saying there's I think 6 channels that we've got here. So one is inbound, 2 outbound, product led growth. So like freemium trials, features, recommendations, low churn, account base, which is, your list of, if you're focused on health, your top 100 prospects, create like campaigns around that, paid digital advertising, and then partners, systems integrators, resellers, distribution, that kind of stuff. But what's interesting is in this sample set, he said also there's the average company has 5 channels that they quote unquote support / pursue, but then they've got 5.5 experiments going. So that's, I don't know, it just seems like 10 different channels to support and try and measure. So I'm trying to scroll on the browser instead of the image. So the other half of this that was interesting. Now these companies are much smaller than maybe what I'm used to, but you know, inbound was surprising for like the 5 to 25K ACV or average contract value. Inbound was still the number one. If it was really small price point, like less than 5K, product led, which doesn't shock me, right? Get some traffic and then onboard. Account based marketing for the larger ones. I don't know, that kind of, that fit with my mental model, right? What I would expect if you're a larger organization, like, or if you're selling larger deals, more complex, usually more buyers involved, then like you're gonna need to kind of focus versus maybe B2C or prosumer is gonna be a little bit more product led and it's gonna have a cheaper price point just given you're selling to a person. So I don't know, does this kind of line up with anything surprise you about this?
No, I mean, this is interesting and it's nice. We put some time into putting this all together, but I think like to your point, like your scale is not my scale. So a lot of these are more applicable. Yeah. Because again, like what works for, us may not work for, AWS.
Oh yeah, totally. Just the AWS sales cycle is so different from some of our partners who I'll talk to, a ServiceNow or a Salesforce, or a Gong or Databricks or Snowflake or Okta. Like everyone is a little nuanced, a little different, right? So I thought this is a nice MBA chart. So we got the 4 quadrants. So the 2025 GTM scorecard, 4 of these, so tried and true is in the top right. Figure it out is in the bottom left. So it's the vectors are popularity across B2B tech is on the x-axis. The y-axis is likelihood of having a big impact. So typically, you want to be in the top 2, either top left or top right. It immediately calls out paid ads as oversaturated, very low bar to getting in there. I know your intimate events, tried and true, big product launches were the next big thing, which is kind of interesting. But B2B influencers is figuring it out, but it's one of the more, it's not as popular, but it's like of the experiment, it's the one, and then AI search is a pretty close second on like, this is going to be the next big thing, soon. So if what you think of, and then AI SDR, that's every time I hear that, I can't imagine like, how can you have an agent doing prospecting, but like maybe it works.
Yeah. That I mean, I've thought about that a lot lately because I get the inbounds for the tools that are trying to do the AI SDRs. And I'm always like, I get it conceptually, but like, when I use ChatGPT or Gemini, like I always have to edit, if I'm like, hey, or even like in just an example, Gmail, they have the AI that helps you generate a quick response. But even that, like, even if it's great and it articulates a good response, still have to edit it because there's still things that just, don't sound right or just like not correct. So I can't imagine like a full on AI SDR because you're just like, oh, they just like responded to all these messages and this is cringe.
Right. So
Like,
there's some interesting anecdotes in here. So, okay, just in the general AI theme of a go to market motion, what are people using? 91% are just using ChatGPT just because it's the Swiss Army knife of AI. It kind of works for whatever task you're trying to throw at it that you're most comfortable with. Then it drops down to basically custom GPTs are 56%, vibe coding, prototyping tools, 41%, and then AI agents are 41%. And then relatively few are using multi-agent workflows, about 21%. But they said that was higher than they anticipated, which I would agree with that. 1 out of 5 is pretty interesting. But I feel like, Lovable fits in there for like the MVPs and Canva and I don't know, maybe Gamma, stuff like that. So, but here's the kicker. The impact of AI is mixed. More than half, 53%, said they see neither no impact or limited impact from AI. Then the delusionment was acute around AI SDRs. In the words of one survey taker, we tried an AI SDR for 6 months and we were unable to generate a single opportunity. So I don't know if that's user error, but like that's what I would expect, to be honest. Because I have a human SDR and that stuff's hard. Like working on. I mean,
yeah.
you run your own business, book of business. You've been at Amazon. You're at a startups. Like you know how hard it is to get in the door.
Well, what I've been thinking about, like how I've been thinking about approaching this is, because I did, we do have like a rec open for like an SDR. And at the same time, I was like, oh, I'm getting the inbounds for these SDR like AI tools. I'm like, maybe I don't need to hire one. But then I look at the tool, I'm like, and everything we just touched on. So my thought process around how, because I do want to leverage the technology. So I don't want to just dismiss it and say like this doesn't work. But the way I'm thinking of approaching this is, yes, I'll have a human SDR, and maybe that human SDR can replicate the work of 3 others by managing the AI SDR. So meaning like they can 2x their workload or 3x their outbound because they'll more manage it closely versus just letting it just go completely into the wild. And like me being like, oh, I don't need an SDR, I'll just press go on this and it goes. And then at the end of the week, I look at the metrics and I'm like, oh, this didn't work. Versus like maybe having like your SDR and like GTM engineer who manages your AI bots.
Yeah. Well, that goes back to my comment. We keep talking about the automation benefits and how this is going to change and eliminate all these jobs, but there's got to be someone who's smart and creative and good at stitching things together and problem solving to figure it out, and then it can scale. And then you're just going to go try to tackle some other more hairy, complex problem that agents can't solve on their own. And it's like, so it's like I wonder, you know, and at that point, yeah, like you could see kind of your job being a manager of agents, right? If the agent's been fully baked, right, by somebody else, and then they worked out the kinks and they can do it. It's like, okay, now we can let you out into production, and it's the next version of Salesforce, but agentic. I don't know. So I wanted to close out with some videos, some sample stuff. I've been playing around with like avatars. So this is because I'm trying to figure out kind of GTM for SMBs. So a buddy of mine's in tree services, and we're kind of just chatting, playing around. He's not a big social guy. I don't know how to do services. But I threw on, let's see. Oh, that was that window. I was going to close that window anyways, Quinn. So I took Kyle's article. I just have the highlights here. And so we've both read into the script, right? And so it can do your own audio. Can you hear this or no?
No.
I have no idea how to pick the outsource on this. I'm sharing. No, I don't know. No, I guess I'm not gonna be able to do this on the fly. So,
But
but it uses my voice, and then it sounds pretty robotic. And then, so all I did was copy in this text here, and then I picked, an avatar, whichever one I wanted to look like, and then I picked which voice, and this could have been you, it could have been my AI, and then it generated it. It took about 3 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, and then you can just export this, to. Let's see if I can get this a video. look like for it. Let's see if I can load that. So another one though was I saw Descript partnering with Sora 2 from OpenAI. Let's see if this was the one. No. All right. Quinn, close your browsers. Act like a professional. Let's see if I can find this link. I can't find it with Google. All right, I think I got it. All right, you probably won't be able to see the or hear the audio, but check this out, dude. So all I wanted, so you go into the script, you pick your avatar, do you want stock media? What do you want? You've got your script over there. Then it's going to generate. And then it's like, it sounds more realistic than you would think. And then look, she's moving around. You're putting in B footage and you're coming back. So you see humans, even though you're not in this. I was just blown away. Like, so you could totally stitch together this like story about whatever, like a plumbing video, like explaining something, and it doesn't have to be your face, right? Like, how do I solve a sink? And it's like, well, first you do this, and then you do this, and you have the movement that keeps people engaged. And I just found this morning, and so I was just like, oh, Doom's gonna love this. So like, we're kind of going back to distribution as the moat, creating, shorts on YouTube or TikTok, even longer form content. If you're breaking it down, it helps kind of offset I don't know, the bad taste in your mouth, but like with your eyes, when you hear an AI or ears, when you hear an AI voice and automatically generated, like the Sora 2 slop, after a while, it's just all the same. I don't know, man. What do you think? I was blown away. Maybe I'm overreacting, but
No, I think it goes back to like you know, the, you know, high agency. So like stuff like this is cool. So it's just like, who, how are you like, how can you use it to, and your example is great too. Like you have your, SMB, like B2C buddy, and he may not have like marketing skills or like, sales skills or whatever, but like partners with his buddy who's like, hey, let me just help you real quick. And there's one story that always sticks with me from the early days. And we say early days of Chat GPT. But when it first came out, like I remember reading this one where this gentleman said, how I'm using Chat GPT or how I've used Chat GPT to help others. And he's like, our yard guy is Hispanic, doesn't speak English, but, I asked him if he wanted to grow his landscaping business. So I typed up in Chat GPT, help me build a flyer to advertise my business, blah, blah, blah. And it did that, the early days of ChatGPT created like a little flyer, helped him. But he's like, and then I showed him how to use ChatGPT so he could do stuff like this on his own. And he's been doing that. And so that was like an example. And I really thought that was cool that like, yeah. So like you show this to your buddy who, maybe he's not so like technically like acclimated to like going and hunting and finding these stuff. But then once you get these sort of things and is, into his hands, what can he go do with it, and get creative and be like, yeah, I want to just talk about how I know the best, shingle layer, whatever it may be. I don't even know, like roofing or cutting trees, but
yep,
yeah, just speaks to that and helps them sort of build that like quick ad.
exactly. And I think the hope here is that you combine it with your domain knowledge. So if you're talking to a plumber, what are the 5 most common things that you get asked? And my AC guy, I'll never forget. He did it a bunch of times actually, but I called him because we got a referral from the neighborhood, and he's like, "Oh, I'm kind of busy. I can't come over right now. You want to go in your attic though?" I was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, just go in your attic and look around, and I'll talk you through it." And so I went up there and I solved it myself. And it was a couple of those, and then finally our AC thing broke. And so I was like, I wasn't happy I had to spend whatever 12 grand, but it was like, oh, hey, thanks for helping me all along, and so I'm glad to give you the business. But it's the same thing online. Like, what are those questions you get asked over and over and over again to earn trust? I can't answer. Like, how do I know when should I plant a tree? I asked ChatGPT that. So like, how should I plant it? Maybe have a little video on it. How do I know if my tree's sick? Right? Like, is this safe? When should I trim my tree if I'm in Dallas and this and that? And so you got some perspective and some trust built. So He's got certifications and like, is it arborist is the tree, right? I think that's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, just things that a generalist can't answer, but with all these tools and high agency, like it can help you find an audience and help on the front end of sales and marketing. So that's what we're going to keep chipping away at with him. I was just like that video, like I can't do that yet with the woman with the bowling, but I'm going to work on that this weekend, next week's. So that was super cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it reminds me of the early days of like blogging. So, the 2006 to 2009 era where it was like, everybody's like, you got a blog, like, right. And so
Yeah.
everybody started blogging because, again, to your point, it was like your subject domain expertise, like, whether you were a real estate agent or, insurance agent or whatever, they're like, oh, blog, because then you're going to get this SEO and people will read your post and you can talk about the best life insurance or best way to like structure your car insurance, whatever it may be. But now it's just formulating into like, now I have bigger and better tools where I can like create a full on video by just typing a few natural language comments into it. And here's some images from some of my previous jobs, layer those in. And sometimes it works its magic and makes it look really well.
I agree, man. You just got to do it. That's what I would say. Same thing we're doing here. Same thing you do with the posting. Because even if you feel like you missed the moment in blogging, Substack just blew up in the last couple of years. And YouTube and Shorts, and there's always gonna be a next wave. So, but if you're waiting, if you're never practicing surfing, and then you try to jump on the next big wave, even if you time it right, if you're not conditioned enough, like of creating content and doing these new things, you're just going to fall off your board. Like that's what I think. So like, at least this way you may not like make it overnight. Even I was listening to a podcast, this guy redid it. It's like Guilty Chef. He was adding like, so it's basically, man, you love a certain recipe from your favorite restaurant. Oh, how do you make chili's queso? Right. Or something like that. And so, there was no single place for all these different restaurants to kind of do a copycat at home. And so they made that, but they didn't see anything. So their Google Trends was just like flat for like 3 months of just adding hundreds and hundreds to over thousands of pages. And then it went boop, and it went, just an up and to the right. So, I think it's like one of those things you just got to produce, flex the muscle, get after it. And the tools are fucking fun, bro. So, you know, it's crazy. So maybe that's all I had today. So we'll be back next week with some interesting stuff. But anything you want to close us out with today?
I mean, just touching on like the comment that you just made, like they were like putting in the work, and it ticked. And then like the hockey stick, there was, like I've always been into music and like hip hop, and, I was always sort of close to like the business side of that early on, and like wanted to be in it. But I remember I had this one music producer and manager who was Sir Mix-a-Lot's manager and producer that I interned with. And he's like, listen to me.
You interned with the producer of I Like Big Butts?
Yes. Yeah. And his
That's awesome.
manager. Producer. And so he told me, because at that time he had this .com, it was during the .com era, and it was like a music site.
That's
But he told
awesome.
me, he's like, look, every overnight success is 7 years in the making.
Yep.
And that was like related to music back then. Now it's probably more accelerated because you have more distribution channels. But back in the day, that's like, he's like, if people are going to be in music, everybody that you see that's making it today has been grinding, and they've been grinding for, and he just said 7 years, like maybe it was whatever it is. Nowadays it's like 6 months, but there's still a grind. To your point, there's still that grind period of like, your analogy was, hey, they were putting all this work, and then boop, boop.
Yep, exactly. Well said. So, well, thanks for tuning in. We'll catch y'all next week on the Fringelands podcast. Thanks so much. Smash the subscribe button if you don't mind.
Yes.
Take care.
All right.